The feedback I'm receiving from my constituents 1 year down the road is that I have visited that constituency a record 15 times in 1 year. That's almost an average of 1 visit per month. It's a very rare thing for the people of that region because they elect leaders and they disappear for the next 5 years. The next time they see their leaders, this is according to the feedback they give me, and I'm also a resident from there. I know what was happening before I even became the MP. After 5 years is when you start seeing the leaders come in for another round of campaigns. But this time round I have visited 15 times in the last 12 months, and all the time I was coming in to attend to some very serious issues concerning my constituents. You remember we did an election when we had a very serious drought, which was predicted to be the worst in 40 years. And we came into office under that emergency. And the first thing we did, even as new legislators, as new MPs, before we even settled down on anything, was to see how to deal with the drought and ameliorate the problems that our people were facing. So having been in the NGO world before I became the MP, I started talking to my friends in the NGO world all over, come and help my people who have an emergency. And luckily, despite the area, my constituency, Mandera South, for example, being very closely in proximity to Somalia, many NGOs used to fear even taking interventions there. So I encourage them to come. The security is good. We will take care of them. And in no time, a number of NGOs started coming in, and they came in with relief food. Some came with cash programs, and I must thank a number of them, like the Danish Refugee Council, Action Against Hunger, Save the Children, Care Kenya, and even the British Embassy. They did quite some marvelous work around that time, because even the ambassador herself, Jane Marriott, before she left the station in Kenya, I think that was one of the first constituencies she visited after we had the elections, and because I invited her and the team from our office together with the governor. We went to Elwak, and they promised a lot of support, which is now coming to fruition, because that visit gave birth to a big cross-border program which the British government launched recently in Mandera. And that program is a resilience program, is a cross-border security program, is a program that is going to help our people in dealing with the challenges that are faced along the border. So between that period and now, cumulatively, all the NGOs that have come to Mandera have contributed something to the tune of 200 million worth of support to the people of my constituency. And that drought, plus the will of Allah, I think the support that we received from our friends through the efforts that we put in to encourage them to come, to give them the political goodwill, to support them where we can, has paid dividend for our people, because cash programs and food relief distribution, water and sanitation programs, livelihood programs, cumulatively, we can talk of about more than 200 million worth of funding. And that is besides what the good governor of Mandera County has done in terms of supporting the relief efforts in my constituency and 6 other constituencies. So that is one major thing that I think I've achieved in the last 12 months. The other thing, under Article 95, 1, 2, and 3, 95, Section 1, Section 2, and Section 3, it defines the role of the National Assembly. And by extension, it defines the role of an MP. Like, for example, as a member of Parliament for Mandera South, I'm elected to do 3 major things. 1, to legislate, 2, to do oversight, and 3, to represent my people. I think for the last 1 year, I have played those 3 roles very well, with clear, deliverable evidence. For example, when it comes to legislation, I have presented 4 bills to Parliament in the last 1 year. Some of them are at different stages of enactment through the parliamentary process. For example, I've proposed an amendment to the TSC Act so that we deal with the question of acting teachers. In Northeastern, just like any other parts of the country, but it is worse in Northeastern and arid and semi-arid lands and areas which we normally call hard to recruit areas, like Lamu and Tana River. We have a lot of senior teachers, we have a lot of deputy head teachers, we have a lot of head teachers who are in acting capacity for quite a number of years. They have never could be confirmed to those positions, despite the Public Service Commission Act indicating very clearly that after 6 months, any civil servant who has been acting for 6 months is to be confirmed to his position. But we have teachers, senior deputy head teachers and teachers, the principals, who have been acting for 2 years, for 3 years, and there is no hope that they will be confirmed anytime soon. So I'm introducing that act to compel TSC to comply with the Public Service Commission Act, of making sure that if a civil servant, and the teacher is a civil servant, if any civil servant acts for 6 months, then they should be confirmed to their position. Secondly, a special problem in my area, there are teachers who have 2 acting letters. For example, he's made to act as a deputy head teacher, and then he's promoted to a head teacher, again in acting capacity. You know, it never happens anywhere in the world. And to streamline all of this confusion, I decided to make an amendment to the TSC Act, which is now also a different stage of legislation. The other thing, the other bill I have in Parliament is the bill on making the universities to create a database for university degrees, in order anybody who wants to verify the degree, legitimate degree of any individual, can do it even from your own laptop instead of just walking to Mtihani House. For example, all the way from Mandera, Garissa, Wajir, or even Turkana and Lokichogio. You lose your certificate, it becomes hell on earth to get a replacement of that certificate. Transport cost, and then you come here, the Kenya National Examination Council wants you to pay another 21,000. It is quite a headache. And then, you know, every election time we always have this problem with candidates. You know, candidate X, we don't know whether his degrees, whatever. If we have the database kept at the university, even the IBC can easily verify the certificate of any candidate whose certificate is doubted. So I also have that an amendment act to the Universities Act to compel the universities form a database to make sure they have online degrees which can be verified by anybody. I also have a livestock, because my area is a livestock area and we came through a very, very serious drought. One of the measures that I think will mitigate against drought in our region is to make sure that we legislate the livestock insurance, so that our people can be asked to pay premium for their, especially the breeding stock. When serious droughts come, they can insure the animals, and if they die, then just like the way you insure your car, the way you insure your medical health and what have you, those farmers can also be paid for their lost livestock through the premiums they pay through the insurance. So I thought it's a very good idea to legislate that as a matter of dealing with this incessant cyclic drought that is always been there. And then finally, I have a bill also on the water towers in Kenya. You know, there's an agency that was created by an act of parliament a few years ago, and that agency has also created a number of other small bodies. And there's a lot of confusion in the whole of that water sector. In order to coordinate all of that confusion, I am proposing the creation of a water towers authority, which will coordinate all of those small bodies so that we can have a proper management, coordination, and taking care of our water towers. So on the legislative part, I have created bills which are on the floor of the House. In terms of motions, I have 2 motions already on the floor of the House. One motion is on the use of, Kenya recently launched a satellite in the US. We launched a satellite. We also recently, I learned when I went to Malindi, I learned that we have a station manned by the Italian government in Malindi, which is actually collecting a lot of data on weather, which goes to help Europe, but it doesn't help our people here. And therefore, I've come up with a motion which will compel the Ministry of Forestry to come up with a policy so that we can use the satellite data to predict our climate, to predict drought, to predict all of that it's much easier to do it when you're doing it through the satellite rather than sending data collectors every month in very remote areas. Some of them are unreachable. Those data is not very reliable, but when you use satellite, so I have that motion also on the floor of the House, and I also have a motion which wants to create a directorate of nutrition in the Ministry of Health, because nutrition is a very important component, especially for the people from our region, for children and for what have you. I thought a directorate of nutrition under the Ministry of Health will serve a better purpose than the way it is now housed in another department, which creates a lot of confusion. So on the legislative part, which is part of my role, I've played that big part. On oversight, because most of our oversight is done through the committees, we have done a lot of oversight with Ministry of Education, because I am in the Committee of Education, and we have called the CS, we have called the TSC, we have called quite a number of stakeholders, and we have ensured that they account if it is for monies that they were given to spend in the last financial year, if it is for processes they've said they will undertake, we have hold them account. Like for example, we pushed, for example, with the TSC, we pushed with the Ministry of Education, we pushed for the removal of the cluster subjects for the diploma teacher training education for primary teachers. In the past, you used to be told you have a C stand and then you have a C in so many five other clusters, and it was very rare for any one student from Northeastern to have all of that combination at the same time. It locked out very many candidates who would have become teachers in primary, and as a result, the Ministry of Education and also the Presidential Working Party on Education, they have agreed with us that cluster subject will be removed, so that a candidate, a student who wants to do diploma teacher education in primary will only require to have a C plane to join any of the teacher training colleges in our country. So we do all of that in terms of and then in representation, I have been on the floor of the House many times, asking questions to the cabinet secretaries. I think I've posed a number of questions to the cabinet secretary for energy, because I have a very serious problem of electricity in Elwak. I have asked the cabinet secretary of livestock and wildlife. I've asked questions to the cabinet secretary of livestock and agriculture on a number of issues to do with drought and also to do with agriculture in our region. I've asked questions to the Ministry of Forestry and Environment on the question of heat waves and a number of other issues that affect our region. Currently, I have a question on the floor of the House, which will be responded to when we open the House, by the Ministry of Tourism on the question of human-wildlife conflict. There are a lot of snakes killing our people. There are a lot of hyenas. There are a lot of other wildlife which are in conflict with our pastoralists, and we're asking the ministry to tell us how they're going to compensate for some of those damages we have to our livestock and to our people. So the last 12 months, I think, has been handful for me in terms of legislation process, in terms of oversight role that I'm supposed to play, in terms of the representation role that I'm doing for my people, making noise all over in terms of what is affecting our region, especially the security problems that we are having there. We are having a lot of issues with Al-Shabaab and other groups in that region. So I believe I've done the best I could do in the last 12 months.